Hello, welcome to Calls. This is the 2022 Memorial Initial Research Show. Hopefully you had a good weekend, a lot of exposure to Sam Burns. Surprising to see Scotty Scheffler not close one out with him being in contention. It was not a great weekend for me. I had some Harold Varner money that went by the wayside after his pretty atrocious back nine, which caused some loss in the DFS and the outright ticket. But we are here for the Memorial, and I would be remiss if I didn't start off this week with without a sincere thank you. It has been 1 year since I have started putting out golf content. It's hard to believe it's already been 1 year, but I started with the Memorial last year, and it has grown to what it is now, and that's all thanks to you all. So I can't thank you all enough for continuing to watch, to listen, for the support, joining me in chat, on social media, all that. Truly, I'm just grateful to be able to do this and to share in the ups and the downs, having a few laughs at my expense and whatnot. But I enjoy every minute of it, and it's all thanks to you all. We're here to try to find a winner this week at the Memorial. So again, hopefully you all had a better weekend than I did. But let's get through the regular intro here. All statistics provided tonight and every night are from FantasyNational.com. It is the best tool out there. It is simply well worth your investment. It's going to make you a much better gambler, a much smarter DFS player. Go check them out. It's well worth your investment. In the descriptions of all three streaming service videos, there are links to my social media. This is where I post my betting cards for the golf content I put out, as well as interesting research for both golf and baseball. For the past 2 or 3 Mondays, I've been posting some interesting facts on the tournament winners for the upcoming tournament. And Max Homa, Justin Thomas, they both qualified in their weeks. Sam Burns was not one of them for this past week at the Charles Schwab. So it'll be interesting to see if I can find any patterns and post that to social media. So if you want to be a part of that research, if you want to see it, give me a follow at the links in the descriptions. And then also, if you want to see some of that research or be a part of the research live, let me know in the comments. Reach out to me on social media if you would like me to kind of be live and walk through the process that I do, gathering my rankings, doing my research and stuff. So just let me know. And then finally, we are live. Chat's open. I want to hear from you all. Hopefully you all had a better weekend than I did. I want to hear about it. I want to hear about any winners that you all have, whether you had Sam Burns outright, any DFS success that you have, or if you just want to yell at me for giving you some bad advice this past week, or want to just bitch and moan if you had Harold Varner like I did, or anything else, just jump in chat. Let's have a good show. Let's have a fun show. Again, like I said, it's been 1 year, so hopefully you all will join me in celebrating this week. So let's do our initial research for the 2022 Memorial. And we start with the tournament fact sheet, which is out for the Memorial this week. We are at Muirfield Village, Jack's Place. We're in Dublin, Ohio. It is a long par 72, measures to just over 7,500 yards. Obviously, with this being a Jack Nicklaus's tournament, it's a Jack Nicklaus design, so we can definitely look at some courses in Fantasy National regarding Jack Nicklaus, perhaps find some players who generally play well on his designs. The greens are smaller than the average tour event by about 1,000 square feet. Not a lot of fairway and a whole lot of rough. That has usually been the MO of Muirfield over the past few years. Quite a few bunkers, but also a lot of water in play. 13 of the 18 holes have water in play. accuracy off the tee, accuracy with your irons is a premium this week. We are on fast to lightning bent grass greens. Most of the time they're fast. They can be lightning. But we are on bluegrass and rye in the rough, generally very, very long. But the fairways are also bent. So bent on the greens, bent on the fairways, and then some really, really long rough. But that is basically Muirfield in a nutshell. Very long, par 72, Jack Nicklaus design, small greens with a lot of water in play, and bent greens in play. So we are starting to have enough data now to where we can gather just this calendar year's bent putting performances. Probably by tomorrow, they will have the Charles Schwab data in there, and as far as I know, that would be about 4 or 5 tournaments. So if a player has played all 4 or 5 tournaments on bent grass, we could be able to not have to stretch as far back as last calendar year. But there's a look at Muirfield from a GCSAA standpoint. So we move now over to Fantasy National, and this is normally one of the elite events on the PGA Tour. A loaded field generally. This week, no exception. I'm going to narrow this in a little bit, so let me get that all situated here. January 1st, 2022. And like I mentioned, it is going to be a pretty difficult test of golf. Long, difficult. Those are the key metrics that we'll be looking at this week, as well as some Jack Nicklaus designs. But you can kind of see just the big names, who has been playing well lately, that is in this field this week. Shane Lowry, Fitzpatrick, Cameron Young, Rory Hideki, which is the biggest names in golf, are here this week at Jack's place. But before we go too much into the data of the players that are playing, let's actually take a look at Muirfield from a scorecard and a graphical view. This was the scorecard last year. It measured 10 yards longer last year, but I mean, you can see 3,700 last, or on the front 9, 37 on the back, or almost 38. So long and difficult. You'll see here the 9th toughest hole, almost a 10th over par. The 10th hardest hole, 8/10 over par. You have to come to 14, 15. So the 14th toughest hole on the course is a 10th over par, and then 15th toughest is under par. So somewhere in between there is par for the course. So, I mean, that tells you just how difficult. Number 18, quarter of a shot over par. 16, almost a quarter of a shot over par. Now, the easiest hole, the par 5 fifth, does play to about 3/10 under par. Not a whole lot of eagles, but a lot of birdies. I would say, I guess to be fair, it's an average eagle rate, and then a little bit higher than average eagle rate on the 15th. So not sure if we're going to be looking too much into eagles this week. We'll really dig into that in the Data Dive show, but again, just the scorecard and the average score on the whole just dictates or tells you just how difficult this place is. When we look at shot type or strokes gained by shot type, approach pretty heavily advanced as far as in relation to putting and around the green and stuff. But around the green and putting are both significantly higher than off the tee for the top 10. Then you move to the top 5, approach really starts to take off, and then your winners historically the around the green has been fairly important, at least compared to the majority of PGA Tour events. It is a difficult course, so you're going to have to be able to scramble, chip your way into pars and such. And then if you look at the average stroke gain by hole by par, no surprise here, par 5s for the top 10s is your leader, and then you move up the leaderboard, more par 5s, and then the winners actually start bringing up the par 3s as well. So we're going to be looking at a whole lot of par 5s, probably some par 4s, as you'll see here in a bit. There is a prevalent range of par 4s here at Muirfield, but we're going to take a look at par 5s, take a look at approach. We'll have to see if putting and putting form matters coming in to the Memorial over the years. But speaking to the prevalency of the length of par 4s, let's cover the par 3s first. Par 3s, there are 3 from 200 to 225 and 1 fairly short one. So we'll see if this length of par 3 is the deciding factor for par 3s, or if it's just par 3s in total. But you see here a whole lot of par 4s that measure from 450 to 500 yards. So we're definitely going to see if that is the key range in the par 4s. And then similarly with par 5s, 3 of the par 5s measure from 550 to 600. So we're going to see if these 3 ranges are the most prominent in their par range, or if these numbers are getting skewed and perhaps some of these holes dip into these other buckets and make them more important. The approach shot distribution here, majority of approach shots here at Muirfield come from 150 to 175 and 175 to 200. And both of those are above the tour average. So again, in the Data Dive show tomorrow, we'll really scrutinize and see if these two proximities dictate some more scrutiny or more weight as we move forward in the week, considering the data model and such. Historic cut line here, generally pretty high, roughly in the +4 range. Now in the mid 2000 teens, 13, 14, and so on, it dipped to +1, even down into -1, and then Jack has really revamped the course, made it a whole lot tougher lately. So on average, it's about +3 to +4, which is pretty darn difficult this week as far as a cut line. And then the scoring distribution chart, birdies almost 20% of the time, bogeys about 17.5% of the time, but there are enough doubles to where bogeys and doubles outweigh birdies and eagles. So again, leading credence to the difficulty of Muirfield. Driving accuracy is higher here due to the penalizing nature of the rough and all the water in play. Green and regulation percentage lower than the average tour event. Combination of difficult course and smaller greens. Scrambling percentage, lower success rate here than the average tour event. So perhaps we're going to have to put some around the green metrics, some scrambling in here this week, considering the course. 3 putts per round, almost as high as the average tour event. That's leading to the fast nature of the greens, since the greens are actually smaller than the average tour event. But when you saw accuracy higher, it's natural to think that driving distance would be a bit lower. It is here. Guys just make sure they're in the fairway, just because the rough is so penalizing. And then green and regulation proximity, a whole lot closer here than the average tour event. So if guys are finding the fairways, they are able to attack flags and so on. And the greens are smaller. So there's a look at Muirfield from a scorecard and graphical view. Let's take a quick look at the historic conditions here at Muirfield Village. And as I mentioned, Jack has toughened this place up over the past couple of years. So you can see 2020, 2021, difficult all the way through. And generally has been average to difficult. Now it did get, like I said, 2016, the cut was -1. So it got pretty easy that year. Jack didn't like that, but generally it's been average to difficult. So we're definitely going to be looking at some difficult metrics, especially since he has made it difficult the past 2 years. We've always been on bent greens. The fairways have generally been pretty difficult to hit, especially after the renovation that happened in 2020. Rough length has always been long. Again, it's just penalizing here. You have to find the fairway, and then you can see your green speeds. A lot more lightning than I was giving it credit for. Only last year did it have some fast. So generally very, very, very fast lightning green speeds here. So we're definitely going to be looking at fast and lightning bent green performance. Wind can be a factor here at Jack's place. Generally moderate to sometimes it can get windy. I haven't looked at Wind Finder. Won't do that until maybe tomorrow, most definitely Wednesday in the DFS Tactics show. But there's a look at the former conditions here at Muirfield. We are going to take a quick look at the tournament history. I will have to make the color-coded chart tomorrow. Had a lot going on this weekend. But if we sort by strokes gained total, Patrick Cantlay is your number one strokes gained total player in the past 5 years here. He has won 2 of the previous 3 editions. This is a little bit of an asterisk. If you recall, Patrick Cantlay won after Jon Rahm had to withdraw due to the positive COVID test. It is safe to say that Jon Rahm was probably going to win. He was 6 shots clear of Patrick Cantlay going into Sunday, but Cantlay officially got the win. He has played Memorial extremely well. Ricky Fowler has played this extremely well. He missed the cut in 2020, but all of the other appearances in the past 5 years have been top 15s. So he's 4 for 5, 4 top 15s and a missed cut. Adam Scott has played well. Again, Kevin Streelman, I mentioned him this past week for the Charles Schwab. He doesn't get enough credit for how well he plays difficult courses. He has generally played pretty darn well here at Memorial. Duffner, Patrick Reed, Bryson, a former winner. We'll see if he tees it up this week. I have my doubts, but we'll see. And then at the other end of the spectrum, guys for whatever reason have not played this event well. Danny Lee, coming off a Jekyll and Hyde. Charles Schwab had 2 fantastic rounds and 2 atrocious rounds. So very Jekyll and Hyde. Cameron Smith has not played this event very well. Missed 3 of his 5 cuts. And the 2 cuts he did make were clunkers. Pat Gazire, 1 for 4. Adam Hadwin has not played this well. Keegan Bradley, Charles Howell. Let's see. Wyndham Clark 0 for 2. You've got Cameron Champ 0 for 2 with a withdrawal. Neesmith. So, there's a look at the other end of the performance spectrum, guys who, for whatever reason, just have not played this event very well. So now let's go ahead and look in Fantasy National, get a little bit of an overview here of some of the players that we're looking at this week. So naturally, we're just going to look at, let's look at Jack Nicklaus courses first. This being obviously a Jack Nicklaus design. We only have 5 rounds for this calendar year. It's the 1 round of the Nicklaus tournament course at the Amex, and then Honda if players played that year, or played that tournament this year. So we're going to have to expand this out. I'm actually going to go a full January 1st of 2021. Jack Nicklaus doesn't have a lot of courses on the PGA Tour, but the ones that he does have are very well known. You've got the Honda, which is PGA National. Although RBC Heritage and Harbortown is attributed to Pete Dye, Jack Nicklaus was a consultant on it, so you can attribute Pete Dye and Jack Nicklaus to that one. You have Glen Abbey, which used to host the Canadian Open. We are back to having the Canadian Open this year, but it is not at Glen Abbey. So Muirfield Nicklaus Tournament Course, which is at the Amex PGA National, which is Honda, and then Valhalla when the PGA was there. So not a lot of tournaments, but enough here where we can get some feel for who has played his events well. 8, 9, all the way up to 16 for Shane Lowry. So going back to January 1st of 2021, your top performers on Jack Nicklaus designed courses: Colin Morikawa, Patrick Cantlay, Max Homa, Alex Noren, Sam Ryder, Cameron Tringale, Rory, Abraham Ancer, Siwoo Kim, and Shane Lowry. All right, so Rory, Homa can move it a little bit. Cantlay moves it quite a bit. But these guys can also find fairways when they need to. Alex Noren, Morikawa, not known for distance. Sam Ryder, not known for distance, generally hits fairways. And also some pretty good bent green performance putters. Rory, his win on bent. Noren's a fantastic bent green putter. Max Homa, his win at the Wells Fargo on bent. Cantlay. Morikawa is not terrible, not an abject failure on bent greens. Pretty good bent green performers here. We'll have to see if that it plays a key factor if you have to be a good bent green putter in general. So there's a quick look at who plays Jack Nicklaus designs well. Let's take a look at long courses. Since this is over 7,500 yards, we're definitely going to be looking at long courses. I'm going to set this back to June 1st of last year. That should be enough rounds for everybody. Maybe not. Let's go to that same January 1st of 2021. We have enough rounds for everybody. We've got upward teens to 20s. So since January 1st of last year, January 1st of 2021, your top performers on long courses are Will Zalatoris, John Rahm, Rory, Corey Connors, Chris Kirk, Xander, Johnny Vegas, Jordan Spieth, Cam Smith, and Colin Morikawa. So again, probably no surprise, these are your players that perform well in majors because those are generally long. Gary Woodland always plays well on long courses. Chad Ramey had a win at the Corrales. That's a long course. So there's your top performers on long courses. Let's take away the long filter. We'll add difficult. So let's see how many rounds we have for difficult. Oh yeah, that's plenty. Let's try to rein this in a little bit. Let's go June 1st. See how many rounds that is for everybody. Is that still enough? Yeah, you got up teens still all the way up to 32. So your top performers in difficult rounds since June 1st of last year. Those players are Rory, Colin Morikawa, John Rahm, Shane Lowry, Cam Smith, Seamus Power, Chris Kirk, Matt Fitzpatrick, Aaron Wise, and Kevin Streelman. So a whole lot of overlap here between the long, the difficult, and Jack Nicklaus design. Shane Lowry, number 1 in that category. I believe, was Colin Morikawa there? I can't remember. I know Cantlay was there. in Jack Nicklaus Designs. Tringali, I think, might have been. So quite a bit of overlap here, especially with the difficult and the long. Makes a whole lot of sense. Let's see. Anything else we want to cover here in terms of an overview? Yeah, let's take a look at putting, since we know we're on bent greens. So we're going to put bent, and we're going to definitely add fast and lightning. Let's see how many rounds people have on lightning bent greens. Yeah, not nearly enough. And this is dating back to June 1st of last year. So if we add fast and lightning, let's see how many rounds this is for everybody. Yeah, plenty. We got, again, up teens towards up to 30 for KH Lee. So your top putters on fast and lightning bent greens since June 1st of last year. Those players are Patrick Cantlay, Rory, Seamus Power, Alex Noren, Troy Merritt, Sam Ryder, Bo Hostler, Seabez, Christian Bezadenhout, Keith Mitchell, and Mackenzie Hughes. All right. Yep. Not surprised by a whole lot of these names. I said Alex Noren putts extremely well on bent. Rory, his win on bent. Cantlay, his 2 wins at the Memorial speak to his putting on bent. Mackenzie Hughes, just a good putter in general. Seabez, good putter in general. Hostler, good putter in general. So, yeah, you can see, I mean, Bo Hostler just loves bent greens. So there's a look at the putting, and then finally, I'm going to really rein this in a little bit and take a look at strokes gained approach. So January 1st, 2022. And let's take a look at strokes gained approach, last 36 rounds. I need to remove the fast lightning bent filters. Okay, so in the past 36 rounds, dating back to the start of this calendar year, 1/1/22, your top strokes gained approach players: Will Zalatoris, Victor Hovland, Hideki, Shane Lowry, Jordan Spieth, Cam Smith, Max Homa, Mito Pereira, Luke Donald, and Tom Hoge. All right, good stuff there. Let's take a quick look at the leaderboards from the past years, see if we can't find a couple of metrics here that we can maybe focus on tonight or take a quick look at tonight, setting us up for the data dive tomorrow. So we'll just take a look at last year's. Patrick Cantlay, Colin Morikawa in a playoff. Patrick Cantlay wins. You see here 13 under is the winning score. That's about what the usual winning score is. Something else I guess we could take a look at a little bit later, long rough. Definitely probably want to take a look at long rough. Actually, you know what? Let's do that right now before I forget, because there is every possibility in the world that I will forget. So let's take a look at long rough metrics. This is the start of this calendar year. Yeah, okay, fair enough. Not enough rounds, at least double digits for most people. So your top performers when the rough is long since the start of this calendar year, 1/1/22. Those players are Matt Fitzpatrick, Max Homa, Will Zalatoris, Rory, Keegan Bradley, Cameron Young, Chris Kirk, Joaquin Neiman, Victor Hovland, and Cam Smith. So definitely wanted to look at that, and seeing the historical conditions again reminded me that we definitely need to take in some long rough consideration. So there's that. Let's come back to this leaderboard. So let's just take a quick look at a strokes gained feel here. You can see strokes gained approach, no real surprise, being the heaviest weight for the top end finishers. But let's take a quick look here. You got 4.2 was the leader in strokes gained off the tee, and it wasn't really that correlating to high leaderboard success. I mean, yes, Patrick Cantlay was third in off the tee and won, but I mean, you have a clunker, middling finish, clunker. So not really a whole lot of correlation here. Strokes gained approach, much higher to be expected. You do have Matt Wallace who missed the cut that is very high in strokes gained approach. He just seemingly didn't make a putt or get off the tee very well in his 2 days. But, top 20, top 10, runner-up, winner, top 15, top 5, yeah. Quite a bit here in terms of strokes gained approach, no surprise. Strokes gained around the green, I meant to see. So 9.5 in strokes gained approach. You had 4.2 off the tee. You have 5.4 in around the green. So that's one of the first times in a while we have seen a higher number in strokes gained around the green than off the tee. And some pretty good correlation here. Top 30, middling, winner, top 5, top 20, top 35, top 10, top 5, middling, or top 35, really. Yeah, you got to come down here to Denny McCarthy before you find a miscut, and his irons were just terrible last year, which explains why he didn't make the cut. So quite a bit of around the green here. Probably something we want to look at this week. And then finally, strokes gained putting. So 8 is the highest here. And there's a decent amount of correlation, but not as high as I would have thought. Your leader, Troy Merritt, made the cut. Tringali, top 30. Homa, top 10, top 20, top 5 runner-up. But, you have some pretty high finishes here and a couple of miscuts. Okay. But, of course, strokes gained approach being the number one factor here. But, yeah, let's just highlight the top, say, 15 conveniently for ties. So top 15 here, you have nobody that is negative in strokes gained approach. You only have 2 negative around the green, only 2 negative in strokes gained putting, but the sum of them, 2.7 to 2.4. Yeah, around the green is quite important seemingly this week. Let's take another look at a couple of tabs here. Good drives gained. You see here greens, a big factor. Greens in regulation, difficult course. Small greens, so if you're hitting greens, you're giving yourself plenty of chances. Obvious statements are obvious. Distance, not a key factor at all. All right. Let's see, 12.2. That is asininely high with Xander. Yeah, that's a pretty good little correlation here. You got a middling finish from Brendan Steele and a clunker by Ty Strafossi, but decent little correlation here. Let's see. Birdies and bogeys. I'd be interested to see, just because normally if it's difficult, my default is to think of bogeys avoided, being that pars would be a good score. But quite a few of these tournaments have proven me wrong in that birdies are more important, and it kind of seems that way here. You have to come further down for your first player that was negative in birdies. Now it was higher than Siwoo's. Let's see, if we cut to the top 25 conveniently for ties. So I think you all can still see. Yeah, Taylor Gooch is at the bottom. Okay, so if we look at the top 25, you've got 3 players that were negative in birdies, 3 players that were negative in bogeys. And the numbers in birdies gained being negative were smaller, or at least closer to field average. So looks like birdies gained would be more important than bogeys voided, at least based on last year. And you don't want to put all of your weight considering just in one year, especially since the course has been used, for a long time. And by my purposes, I only go back 5 years. It's been played at Muirfield for the past 5 years, so plenty. It looks like birdies gained, at least from 2021. And again, we'll go into the data dive show tomorrow, figure out if it is indeed birdies gained. Let's see. I'm kind of curious about these par 3s, 4s, and 5s. I'm going to start with the par 4s. Oh, yeah, look at this. So your top performers in par 4s, look at the 450 to 500. Just you have to come down. I mean, your top 17 here were all positive in the 450 to 500. Let's see. You do have a clunker from Brendan Todd, clunker from Corey Connors, a couple of middling finishes, but pretty strong here. And look at Patrick Cantlay, 10.3. He was your winner, and he demolished this length of par fours. Very interesting to see that. Very interesting. Yeah, I mean, 10.3 out of a 12.2. I don't want to say it's all in the 450 to 500, but boy, that's pretty strong right off the bat here from 2021 in regards to par 4 importance or length of par 4. Let's take a look at par 3s. Let's see if 200 to 225 was the be-all, end-all. It doesn't look like it. Let's see, the highest here is a 4.2 in 175 to 200. You got a 4.6, so they seem like they're fairly close in terms of importance. And at least in 2021, you had more players that were better at the 175 to 200 than you were the 200 to 225. Interesting, very interesting. Let's take a quick look and go back to the scorecard and see if these par 3s, so 210, could come down into the 175 to 200. There you go. So there's a 200 on the mark. That's going to get moved down and up and whatnot. So you can definitely see that coming into the 175 to 200. There's the 180. And then, okay, so another 200. So it makes a whole lot of sense here why the 175 to 200s are keeping up with the 200 to 225. You've got two of these three on the scorecard that measure right at 200 yards. So easily those can sway into this bucket here. So yeah, that explains that a whole lot better than this graph does. And that's why I always like to dig into the data and figure out if these graphs are, I don't want to say lying, but misleading in terms of importance, especially with proximities. So there's a look at the par 3s. At least in 2021, they were both about equally as important. And then par 5s, it was the 550 to 600s. Okay. And Cantlay was negative from this one. So there's 3 in this bucket supposedly and 1 in this one. So you had, let's see, what's the highest here? 4.3. Decent correlation, to be fair. You don't have a missed cut for a long while on the par 5s of this length. Now you have a 5.4. What was this one? 4.3. So the highest end here from Shane Lowry is higher. But you also have missed cuts that are pretty high on this length of par 5s. Interesting. Let's take a look at the scorecard, see if we can find these par 5s and if they measure. So 547. So actually that one could realistic jump into this one being so close. So you got a 547. 592 pushes the 600. 588 pushes the 600. 561 maybe could come into the 550 under 550 category. So surprisingly, this one par 5 looked like it was more important than these 3 in terms of high leaderboard success, at least from 2021. So it's interesting to see. We'll scrutinize that tomorrow. And then finally, let's take a look at proximity. Just really quickly, we saw that the majority of approach shots come from these 2 ranges here. And this is why I like to dig into it, at least in 2021. I mean, there's not really any correlation. Your winner was negative in both of those. You had Shane Lowry was negative in both of them. Barely negative, but negative. If we sort on them, yeah, I mean, there's just not a lot of correlation here. You got 3 missed cuts that are really high from the 150 to 175. And another missed cut down here, 175 to 200. A little stronger, but still not that much. Huh. So this is why I always like to dig into it. Why proximity is my bane in terms of golf analytics. If we look at total proximity, decent, but I mean you still have James Hahn, who missed the cut last year. Peter Malnati missed the cut, who's really high in total procs. I don't know. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me. So now we can take a quick look at a couple of things here now that we know a couple of the things. Let's take a quick look at par fours, especially from 450 to 500. And this will change for players that played in the Charles Schwab. But your top performers since the start of this calendar year, 1/1/22, in par fours from 450 to 500. Those players are Shane Lowry, Cameron Young, Seamus Power, Gary Woodland, John Rahm, Rory, Max Homa, Alex Noren, K.H. Lee, and Aaron Wise. So, all right. Good stuff. We're not going to dig too much or any further, really. We're going to save that for the data dive. But what I'm going to do now, even though I didn't make the color-coded spreadsheet for you all, labeling out the strokes gained total in their various stats, I'll make sure to do that tomorrow. What I do have for you all is a little bit of research that I've done yesterday and early today. Let me switch the view for you all. So, what I have here, these are the winners of the Memorial dating back to 2012 and the events that they played that calendar year. So you see when Tiger won in 2012, he had played the Players, the Wells Fargo Masters, and so on. Let's just take a quick look here and see what these winners kind of have done. So Tiger did it all on approach. He had a whole lot of greens. He gave himself a whole lot of opportunities. Kuchar, quite a bit of strokes gained approach, but a lot of putting as well. His greens were really high as well. Not as many opportunities, really. Let's see, Hideki, all in approach. Actually putt well by Hideki standards that year, so all in strokes gained approach. Didn't hit as many greens, surprisingly, so his around the green metrics were pretty good that week, and gave himself a whole ton of opportunities. Lingmerth in 2015, equal in putting and approach. Let's see, not the highest in greens either. McGirt, 11 down here from Duffner in 2017. Desham, surprisingly, he was more of putting. I would have thought the approach would have been higher. He didn't really give himself many opportunities either. So seeing him win, these numbers aren't astronomical like some of these, like Jason Duffner gaining 11 strokes in approach the previous year. Patrick Cantlay in 2019, 7.5 in strokes gained approach. Yeah. So interesting to see there. Mostly strokes gained approach. You can see a little bit of putting. Very rarely, though, is a champion negative in terms of around the green as well. William McGirt, Duffner was good that week. DeChambeau was good. Cantlay was very good. Yeah, so around the green, these champions have been, except for David Lingmerth in 2015, and even he was only negative a half a shot. These guys have been pretty high in strokes gained around the green. So leading more credence to the fact that we need to look at strokes gained around the green. But something else that I did notice, I want you all to take a look at here before we sign off for the evening. Let's take a look at these par fours, 450 to 500. I did notice this while I was researching. So Tiger, 2012, he gained 4.5 in those. 2013, probably going to have to keep scrolling over because I won't remember. Kuchar, Hideki, Lingmerth. So Kuchar, he gained 6.2. Hideki 8.6. Lingmerth 4.9. Now 3.5 is the lowest I've seen so far. That's from William McGirt in 2016. But you got a 7.5 here, 3.2, 5.5, 3.8, 10. So 450 to 500 par fours are going to be pretty darn important, I think, this week. At least that's what the first inclination is. And then something else that I have noticed is that guys have had some pretty darn good form, at least at some point during that calendar year. Tiger, a win in the second. You've got Matt Kuchar had a top 10 at the Masters. He top 10, or really runner-up the week before the Memorial. Hideki top 10 the week before the Memorial. Now Lingmerth's a bit of an outlier. He did have a top 15 at the Arnold Palmer, but not the best of form coming in. So again, he seems to be a bit of an outlier. McGirt had a top 20 at the Wells Fargo, a top 10 at the RBC Heritage, more top 10s earlier in the year. Duffner just was consistent, a top 15, a top 15, a top 15, a top 15, a top 15. So yeah, they've had some pretty good form coming in, which is to be expected. The best players generally perform the best, or play well heading into events that they're eventually winning. So I think that's going to do it for the initial research show tonight. I will make sure to have the color-coded strokes gained total broken out by the various stats tomorrow. We'll take a really, really deep dive into the metrics of previous years. I'll bring up the comparison course spreadsheet that I keep, compare these par fours, 450 to 500, how much more important are they than the average tour event? How much more important is around the green than the average tour event? So on and so forth. So that'll be interesting to get into. But as I said in the intro, I'll say it again as we sign off. I can't thank you all enough for the support over the past year, that I'm able to do this and provide the content that you all keep coming back and watching and listening. I really enjoy it. Hope you all do as well. I'm looking forward to another year. Hopefully as successful as a year as the first one was. So thanks again for all of the wagers that you made this past week at the Charles Schwab, for any wagers that you've thought about making already at the Memorial. And until I see you tomorrow night for the Data Dive show, may all your bets be profitable.